All right, welcome back. As you could see there, we brought you excerpts from the ongoing annual meetings in Marrakesh, Morocco, the annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund, as the IMF, and the World Bank. Now it's time for us to get into our discussion. As you could see, the crude price, which is at $87 this morning, and petrol subsidy, as well as the state of our refineries. I have my guest here, Engr.Barry Esimone, who is the founder and chief executive officer of Cross-Stream Group. Welcome to you, engineer. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me once more.
Yeah, okay. I think we should get started from what the GCEO of NNPC Limited said, that Nigeria will be a net exporter of petroleum products next year. He said, he mentioned it at the Pengassan Summit, that he doesn't want to give a date, but next year. What do you think? Because what that tells me is that, okay, for us to export, we have to be self-sufficient first, Abi. Isn't it, my people, Abi? you need to have so much. You need to have surplus. Then it's a surplus you would export. I don't know, but what do you think?
Theoretically speaking, yes. But
what is theoretically speaking?
You have to have sufficient
okay.
before you can export. But in reality, you still can be deficient and you export.
And you export,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm aware there are some agricultural products that we're still struggling to have self-sufficiency, and we're still exporting them.
Exporting.
And the export is because of the drive for FX. So it's not necessarily a balance that there's self-sufficiency before the export.
Now, does it make sense that Nigeria is still importing petrol? You are importing petrol, and you have to produce here now. You have to produce here to export. Or is it the one that is importing that he will be producing,
no.
that he will be exporting?
No,
so I'm assuming that he's saying by next year we will start producing, and the production of crude will be that exportation. So I just assume that our refineries would have been working, but that's another, we'll come back to that. I needed to, I hope you understand my point.
Very clearly, very clearly, I understand your point. I think the foremost authority in balance of trade in petroleum products in Nigeria is still the GMD of NNPC. So he's still the person to tell us the direction of petroleum product trade in Nigeria, whether we'll be net exporter or net importer. So the right person has made that statement. We can only demand some more details to be sure whether we are being properly informed. Yes, when he said net exporter, you know there are two types of petroleum product you can export. Either the crude oil is a petroleum product, or the refined product. So he also needs to make it clear which export are we going to be emphasizing next year. And like you said, yes, it makes common sense that self-sufficiency will exist before you export. If you remember the last time I was here, I did say that we have always been a net importer of petroleum products for a very long time. And it's an anomaly that we will continue to do that. That we are one of the few major oil-producing nations in the world that still import petroleum products. Our founding fathers were clear-visioned on the need for self-sufficiency in internal refining capacity, hence the set up the 3 refineries, the Kaduna, the Warri, and the Port Harcourt. And so it's not a lack of vision that we found ourselves where we are today. There was a proper vision that we should be self-sufficient in internal refining capacity. However, the operation of those facilities have been less than optimal. And that led us to where we are today, the crisis we're in today. And so, like I said, if the GMD says that with the facts available to him, that will become net export of petroleum products, that's the wish of the nation. And so we pray that that comes true. However, if it's a refined product, it's not rocket science to fathom that it is possible, because as of June, it is recorded by MBS that the internal consumption of Nigeria averaged about 436 barrels per day. That's in crude oil equivalent. What it means is that if Dangote comes on stream, which is 650,000 barrels per day, and as we have been promised, if the other 4 refineries of the nation come back on stream, which is 445,000 barrels per day, put it to Dangote, it's over 1,000 barrels per day. And if our consumption is less than 500,000 barrels per day, of course there is a headroom for export. So the question is, will these refineries function to the point that they will be producing optimally?
What do you mean by producing optimally? Because we have 445,000 barrels production capacity. Dangote, let's even take away Dangote now. Though Nigeria has a stake in that refinery, which is 650,000 barrels per day. Of course, Dangote will produce and also export. But let's take off Dangote. Let's assume that our 4 refineries are working in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna. And we have optimal capacity of 445,000 barrels. I want to understand what you're saying. Does it mean that with that 445,000 barrels, we are able to be self-sufficient in terms of our internal capacity, consumption capacity? Will we be able to produce that Nigerians can use, then export? I'm assuming everything being equal, or how did they say it? Yes.
All things being equal.
Yes, all things being equal.
But I can tell you, technically speaking, there is no such engineering prediction for such, because every process plant has what we call availability. Okay? And availability of plants like a refinery can be, at best, 90-something%. So if you have, you're talking about installed capacity. Nameplate capacity. But availability would determine what will come out of that.
So it will not be up to 100%. There could be a lot of losses, some losses along the way and all that.
In fact, having been rehabilitated or going through rehabilitation, when they come on stream, they will ramp up gradually. And so if we get 60% availability when they turn them on, and to ramp them up to 90%, that would be fantastic. That would be a world-class level. But we are yet to see that. Why we will not ignore the Dangote contribution to the mix is, I say, reality. The plant is up there. Finalizing, maybe that's what they're going through. And like you noted, NNPC is an investor in that organization. So in their calculation of the supply of refined product to the nation, they must also tap into that. However, I'm sure in recent times, you must have heard about Dangote expecting imported crude oil. And it's not strange to us, the industry players, because the truth of the matter, you can't build a process plant the kind Dangote is building with only one source of feedstock. You must have a multiple feedstock sources. You must demonstrate that, in fact, in your business plan before financiers can put up their money. So he must demonstrate that beyond Nigerian source of crude oil, he has other sources. So
to get crude.
Yes.
But those people that he wants to get crude from already have their existing customers. So how is he going to penetrate that? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Very clearly.
Yes, because if he's saying, okay, should I get, I'm assuming now, let's put all the assumptions on the table.
Yes.
That Nigeria is an investor, of course, through the NNPCL in Dangote's refinery. If Nigeria does not give crude, though Dangote refinery has said, I think they're expecting by November, I think so. If it goes to other countries, let's start from even Africa. Angola, which other oil-producing country? Ghana, which other oil-producing country? I think there's Egypt, there's Algeria.
Yes.
Yeah. But these countries already have, some may have refineries, some already have existing contracts with refineries that will refine those their products. So how is Dangote really going to break?
Madam Nancy, I can tell you, Dangote is an astute businessman. He has demonstrated that in his cement business, that he's able to reach outside our shores to access markets. Okay? So I believe that
He's
no matter,
Africa's richest man.
of course, I
So any
believe,
door he knocks on should be opened unto him.
I am not saying that, but I believe that having put such a level of investment in refinery development, he must also have a department working on this round the clock to ensure regular supply. Because like I mentioned in the last interview, profitability of process plants, of which refinery is one, is based on 24/7 operation. There's no room for shutdown until the scheduled shutdown for maintenance. So you must have a robust plan of how to ensure that his feedstock continues to flow uninterruptedly. And so he could source his crude oil from anywhere in the world. I'm sure he would have been doing that. He will have a department responsible for that. So I'm not in his team, so I wouldn't know what the structures are, but I respect his business savviness, and so I believe he would have done the needful. But when all that will add up to the nation is what I cannot predict now. If you recall, I did say the last time I was here that refining and the market for refined product is controlled
shrinking.
beyond the shores of Nigeria.
Okay.
The prices are controlled beyond the shores of this country. They are priced by Platt, the international product. And so he is fully aware of that. And then we know that the market for fossil fuel
It's shrinking.
is shrinking because of drive for greener energy. So it's shrinking. And he's a businessman, I will always say. I'm sure he knows that the market is shrinking and the market will continue to shrink. And he's going to be competing with the gurus in the trade, the traffickers of this world, the
I think I watched an interview.
the Vitals. These
Yeah.
are master traders across the globe. He should be sharing with them.
I think I watched that interview at the time when he was interviewed, and he asked if he would do this again, if he would build a refinery again. And I think if I remember clearly, he said, I would not do that again. You know, so I can imagine what has gone into this to talk about that. Okay, let's shift to Dangote refinery a bit. Though, of course, there have been expectations that his refinery was going to come on stream even before the last administration left, or at least after, just immediately after. Let's talk about petrol subsidy. Has petrol subsidy returned? Even though the federal government is saying that petrol subsidy has not returned, and I'm struggling to accept that fact.
My position will be, has it even left at any time?
Has it even left? If it's,
We have always had subsidy.
petrol subsidy, I mean.
That's what I mean.
So if you think that it has not left at any time, why are we paying more at the pump? At the pump at 600 and something when it was 195 to about 250. It depends on which part of the country you are.
Nancy,
I hope you understand what I mean.
Very clearly.
Yes.
You recalled that the last time I also was here, I did mention that there are parameters that influence the pump price of petroleum. Crude price for one, FX regime for two, and a few other things. These two principal contributors to the price of PMS change daily. And from the last time till now, the change has been in the upward side, meaning that whatever numbers were used to establish the pump price at the time you're talking about has long changed. And so, whether announced or not, it exists.
Does petrol subsidy exist?
Well, of course, if they maintain the pump price the way they're selling it, the landing cost as at today, I can tell you, is about 700 and something naira per liter. So if you're paying 600 and something naira per liter,
that means there's subsidy already.
there is a gap.
There's subsidy.
Exactly.
But now, from the indications, there's subsidy.
Thank you.
Before, when the president announced fuel subsidy is gone and price was increased,
Yes.
did we at that point did we still have subsidy?
Because he said it's now market forces driven.
Yes.
So those market forces are crude oil price that goes
Yes,
up.
FX.
FX.
Yes.
So it will always be there. Those are two major principal drivers of the price of PMS.
But that was why they also increased it. That was why the price jumped from about 195 or 200 and something
As at the date of that increase.
Yes.
At that date of that increase. That's why they moved from that 5 to 600 and something again. So it is a continuous moving parameter. once a crude changes,
You're
as
supposed to
FX
adjust.
changes, so it will continue to increase. If government doesn't want the public to bear it, they absorb it and maintain the price. Means that subsidy exists. Government does not want to pass it on to the public.
So why is government coming out to say that fuel subsidy has not returned? Why do you think government is saying that?
So that they can manage the reaction of the public. And therefore,
That they made a mistake?
I don't think it's a mistake. I think they made it very clear. They said it will be driven by market forces.
Yes.
And once you say that, it means that you don't have control over what happens.
But with what they have now, if fuel subsidy is there, that means it's not managed by market forces. And remember, the NNPC is still the sole importer. The NNPC has even said, I'm still the sole importer. I never knew when they were never the sole importer, because even the fuel importers were still having problems around FX and having access to those markets. So NNPC is still the sole importer.
Yes.
So explain that for me.
Madam, I am not a very good student of accounting, but I know in accounting, there is a situation where you create, so you're a better authority in finance, a situation where you create some portfolio where you drop negatives that will influence your accounting. So NNPC may be dealing with that. They know that this price changes daily, and they don't want to pass that daily change to the public, even when there is market forces driving it. So they will create that pool and absorb the difference while maintaining that price. That pool is the subsidy, whether announced or not. That's the truth of the matter.
Anyway, since you've accused me, or you subtly gave it back to me, that I'm the authority in this, I will let that slide a bit. But on the condition of the FAC allocations, because we've also seen in the past from May that the president announced it, there was a month, I think in June or July, that FAC allocation, that's what the federal government, state and local government shared, was close to 1 trillion naira. Let me see down the line what the figures will be, and that will give me an indication of whether the federal government is actually speaking accurately. We'll be able to decipher that. And if fuel subsidy has not returned, according to the federal government, though that announcement came just a few months ago that, okay, we are just holding prices. And I'm wondering, you are holding prices. Who is hedging it? you are holding prices.
That's the point.
Who is it? But like they said, the chicken will always come home to roost. So, but let's leave that and move to the area now of refineries. The NNPC GCO, also NNPCL, GCO said that 25 licenses for refineries has been dormant in the last 10 years. Why are we having this?
It's very simple, madam. To be able to set up a refinery requires serious financing. Financial engineering is very important. That's why if you follow through the Dangote refinery establishment, the channel he went through for financing, both syndication of loan, with his strength and capacity as African richest man, he still went through syndication, and he still runs into challenges of financing that has to sell equity to NNPC and stuff like that. So refinery development and establishment is not a walk in the park. And so you issue licenses to 20 people for 10 years. They have not been able to meet the financial requirement of financiers. That's why they're carrying those licenses. And the reason is very simple. The viability of your plant, most of those licenses were based on what you call the modular refineries. That's the language we use. Most of them are largely that. And I did mention here in one of my outings here that those skid-mounted refineries, their economics will be negative for any financier to put money, because the efficiency of a topping unit with type of crude stream we have is at best 40 to 50%. So if you're extracting 50% value from the crude oil, and you're competing with a plant that extracts 90% from the crude oil, you're already disadvantaged. So you can't get to the market. So the financier must see, the loop must close before you get a dime. So those guys carrying those things are not able to close this loop. If they do their viability analysis and run their model through the financials, they will see that the product that will come out of that, when they price them properly by international market pricing, they will be in the negative, so they can't get financing. So my suggestion has always been this. I have no problem with modular refinery establishment or small unit refinery, but we must define it properly. So if we extract the 40% value by topping unit, the 60% negative must be collected and beneficiated in a complex refinery that will extract extra 20% out of that. It will be a network of process. It's not a run of the mill. It's not a straight line operation. Okay. So it must be a complex system, network organized so that there is no negative. The negative here becomes the positive somewhere else. And that's the way you will balance it.
Okay, let me ask this question. Let me go back because I'm looking at our time and we don't have up to 5 minutes left. Let me go back. So still the issue of these refineries now. If Port Harcourt refineries begin to work at the end of this month, as promised by Mr. President and GCEO of NNPC Limited, in fact by December, if that begins to work, Warri and Kaduna comes on stream next year, do you think that we'll be self-sufficient? Do you think that pricing at the pumps will be reduced?
I mentioned this in the past also. When all the plants come in, what is guaranteed nation is availability, not necessarily cheaper prices. It's availability. You can have petroleum product available. The change due to local production will be minimal. Because, for example, the Dangote refinery that had borrowed funds from outside must also pay back the loan. And so they will match their pricing with international pricing. So how do you expect him to sell cheaper?
So we will not necessarily see a significant reduction in price?
I don't expect a significant reduction in price. I can only be sure that we'll have availability in country.
Availability. How about the area of landing costs issues, of course, out, transportation issues out? The NNPC Limited, GCE also spoke about the transportation of petrol to even border countries have actually also stopped to an extent.
Madam, let me tell you very simply. The major components of the price of PMS is the crude oil price.
Yes, I know.
Whether you are Dangote or anybody, you're buying at the international price.
Which
so
is $87
So that's to everybody. So no advantage.
Yes.
Number two, refining cost, staff payment, royalties, all the elements that go into that is fairly constant. And I will expect it to be more expensive locally here because we are importing almost our labors that will operate that refinery. So the cost of refining will not necessarily be cheaper. So you have seen crude cost that is standard. Your refining cost will not be substantially, if anything, will be higher. You add it to that point. The only other areas where you can find drop is maybe government choose not to tax. Okay? And that's what is the tax. Currently, there's no tax on petroleum products in Nigeria. And so you find that there are no really cost elements that can be eliminated to drop the price the way you're talking about.
And they've removed the one on diesel.
So there's really no, it's a wishful thinking that the price will crash with refineries all over everywhere. No.
Okay, let's talk about energy mix and that we have new ministers on ground, the attention to gas, as it were. I think the last time I heard the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources was just after inauguration. I don't know, there could be a lot of stuff going on within the ministry now in terms of the blueprint. We have a Minister of Gas Resources and we have a Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. What kind of energy mix do you think that we should begin to undertake as a country? And what are the kind of sound bites you want to be hearing from the two ministers? I see a lot of military, of course, understandably so. I haven't seen Esimone. I haven't seen, or whether they are speaking and I'm not within the space, so I'm not hearing. But what do you think around this, what I've asked? And we just have about a minute to go, yes.
That's fine. I think it's already a sing-song that we need to bring in energy mix for transportation by way of encouraging CNG vehicle and all that. But I can tell you very quickly, we're still far from getting to that reality because you need infrastructure across the nation from where vehicle users will have to recharge the CNGs. Do we have that yet? That's number one. Number two, I can tell you also, we are NNPC declared a decade of gas.
Gas, yes.
How do we have sufficient upstream investment to be able to explore and develop this gas?
Okay.
We're a gas nation, but they are still in the ground. Do we have investments to do that? These are the issues to address.
Okay, I think we'll look at that on another day. Thank you very much for coming today on the program.
Thank you for having me.
I've been speaking with Engr.Barry Esimone, who is the founder and chief executive officer at Crude. We'll be looking at crude oil price as well as refineries, and if indeed petrol subsidy has returned, though the government is saying no. But like I said, the chicken will come home to roost. Now here we did. Anyway, that's the much you can take on today's edition of the program. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see by now.